Well, my name's George Wills. I live at Windermere Park. I have been with the Brigade here for 18 months and I'm 73 years of age. Well, I've been in the Army, served 2 tours in Vietnam, been a security manager, a customs officer for 9 years. I've been a sheriff. And I've also been a tour operator for people with disabilities. It's a business that I had for 9 years. Perhaps my most rewarding. I went from that to retirement and to what I'm doing today. When I was younger, I used to teach gymnastics at a police boys club for a number of years. Well, you've got to look at the spectrum for disabilities. The spectrum is rather broad. You've got one end of it where the people are very easy to handle, and there are a lot of people prepared to do that end. I came in at the other end where they're very hard to handle and requires more staff to look after them. They have behaviour problems and this sort of thing. We tried to pick appropriate places where we could try and interact the community with them so that they had some sort of normalisation, I guess you would call it. Sometimes the bizarre behaviours would come forward and that led to many a trial and error situation. I could go anything from an 8-hour day up to 4 nights away. Quite a hard job, but the most satisfying job, because sometimes they just come up and give you a hug. They were lovely people, lovely people. I've never regretted ever doing that line of work, ever. Had a lot of laughs. I was 6 years in the Army. I joined in '62, served 2 tours in Vietnam, and in 1965 I went away to Vietnam with the 1st Battalion Royal Australian Regiment, contracted cerebral malaria while I was there. That put me in hospital for some 2 months. I found that when your life's on the line, you don't muck around, you just train, you just do it. Ended up at Singleton training national servicemen my last 12 months of my Army career. And then I decided to get out because I was going back to Vietnam for a 3rd time, and I had a young baby by this time. An experience, one of life's experiences for me, which I've never regretted doing. So yeah, it was quite a good time for me. Although it had its hard times, I always look for the positives from it. I'm a bit different. I don't know if I'm different, but one of the things I did in the Army, I trained a tiger. When they found out, my company commander found out that I was, it was my 2nd time in Vietnam. He said, good, you're it. You're going to go to Taronga Park Zoo, you're going to train a tiger. I said, oh yeah? And that's how it came out. They just decided to call it Quintus. And yeah, that was a perk because I got sent, I came home 6 weeks early and I had to go to the zoo every day. And I had him sitting in the footwell of the car. And I pulled up, I was a bit lost in Sydney. And I pulled up, there's this copper on point duty. And I pulled up beside him and he's trying to wave me around. I said, no, come over here. You know, and he sort of said, what do you want? And he stuck his head through the door, like through the window. And this tiger just went, he bashed his head on the door. What do you want? What are you doing with that sort of? I said, I'm looking for the Navy Wharf down the bottom, the Garden Island. He said, oh, down there, mate. Piss off. You know. He got real upset with me. I don't know why, but yeah. As far as PTSD goes, that's not a problem for me. I suffer with PTSD. Yep. That's purely from my Vietnam experiences. Yep. However, I was told by a psych, the best thing you can do is confront it. I handle it my own way, and that is I will get out and I will work. I'll work myself to nearly exhaustion, and I'll handle it that way. And that's one of the reasons I'm probably as fit as I am. But each individual has to find their own way of combating it. I find physical activity is mine, and being busy is the big thing. goes back beyond 18 months ago. It takes me back actually 10 years ago. My brother-in-law was a single parent living with his 4 young children, 4 boys, at Silverwater. And he had a fire at the house which ultimately led to his death. My wife and I took the boys on as guardians for the children to raise them. I got up to their house within 5 minutes of getting a call from the neighbour to say the house was alight, and I was there just after the brigade arrived, so they were very quick on the spot, and I saw them carrying him out. And he was a man with long hair, had no hair left, all burnt away. Then his mother arrived, and I had to then attend to her. He was flown to Sydney, Royal North Shore Hospital, where he passed away subsequently that night. And I was reflecting while I was in the waiting room that he wasn't badly burnt to look at him. His injuries were more internal, and I was thinking, those guys were there so quickly, you know, how could it be? And I just marvelled at what these guys had been able to do. So quickly were they there. I tended to forget about that side of it, the fire brigade side of it. And it wasn't until 18 months ago, and right beside me was the Fireboat Alpha, which is Lake Macquarie Fireboat Alpha. And it was there for a few days, and I just sort of looked it over and I thought, oh yeah, and it sort of brought back memories of the things I've been thinking about. And then lo and behold, up rocks these 3 guys, round about my age, I thought. Well, you know it, we're chatting like old friends. And I thought, that's what I'm missing. One of the things I'm missing. I'm so caught up with raising these boys. I'm missing the camaraderie of a group, and they seem to think that I have had what it took anyway to go into the RFS. I spoke about it with my wife, and she said, look, you need a channel, you need an outlet. Because I still suffer with PTSD from the army, and I thought, well, there could be nothing better. For me, it fills a void that I had. I have knowledge that I can give back. I've got a good work ethic, I think. I'm fit for my age. Plus I'm setting a good example for the boys, should they, you know, because I'm always trying to set an example to them. So I said yes. I was lucky enough to win the Trophy of the Year, Fire Person of the Year award for the Brigade last year. So I was very appreciative of that. It meant that at least somebody was aware that I've been putting an effort in. So I was very happy about that. I've got to compete against the younger fellas, and that can be, I don't say difficult, but it keeps me on the toes. And in fact, I'm doing the Raw Challenge at Doyleson Club on the 24th of this month. That's a 7-kilometre obstacle course. And the guys from the brigade are going to go and do it. I think it's of a benefit to the brigade. I'll work till I drop if the need be. I'm not frightened of work. And the guys here, I think, might tell you the same thing, that makes me feel good too, because at my age I'm still working with young men, and there's some great young men here. I can call them young men because they're a lot younger than me. I give a lot of them 40 years. We came across an underground fire, and we were looking at the ways in which we should attack it. And I just thought there's only one way to attack this fire, because it was on the slab of the hill, is to tackle it from the top, dig down. So I started to, with a shovel. I started digging a hole, one of the Group 2 officers, was watching me, and as was a crew leader and a couple of other people just watching, and others were just standing around. I made a hole big enough and we were able to get a hose in there and start pumping the water in and foam in there. And lo and behold, I'd had it by then. And then a crew leader took over, and another crew leader from another unit took over, from another brigade. I think there was 3 crew leaders all doing the work, and the firefighter was just standing there. And this Group 2 officer was laughing his head off. And I said, "What are you laughing at?" He said, I'm just, look at these people who haven't done any of this sort of work in years. He said, "You've led by example." And I hadn't thought about that. I was just doing something that I would normally do. And he said, "You've got people working that would normally tell other people to go and do it." Although I was still a probie, so to speak, I just felt that I'd shown that I could think for myself, and I could work something out. Two things. One was an overrun on TJ's fire just recently up in Howes Valley. That brought home to me all the training that we've given and how important it really is, because had anybody panicked at that particular point in time, had not decisive action been taken at that point in time, we could have been in trouble. And I've gone over that many times since then, and I've always felt that it was the training. It just clicked in. Okay, drop everything, don't run to the truck, walk quickly to the truck, get in and drive out of the area, which we did do. And that just showed me the training works. The one thing you've got to do when you do join, I said, is family first. I said, wife and family first. I said, your job second. I said, then the RFS, if you want to place, I would place them in that order. And he said, what do you mean? I said, well, don't be all consumed by the job here. I think anybody that has got a mindset that they want to volunteer for an organisation normally has a driving force behind them. And if a person has made that effort to come forward, that's the first part of it. I would invite them to certainly to join. There would be a number of questions I'd ask, because this job, I don't mean to be conceited, but it does take a certain level of fitness. To join it, yeah, love it. From my perspective, I love it. Every time I come here, I'm buoyed up by the people that I'm working with and the things that we're doing. Firefighting to me, it's hard work at times. It's being part of something, a sense of well-being within yourself, for working within your community.